Urgent. Never reheat these 7 foods after 60. Stroke risk, skyrockets, not what you think. You know, there's nothing quite like the comfort of a home-cooked meal, especially when it's one you can enjoy for a second day. It saves time, it saves money, and let's be honest, sometimes that leftover pot roast or spaghetti tastes even better the next day. I get it completely. For most of our lives, reheating food has just been, well, something you do. It's second nature. You pop a plate in the microwave, warm it up, and that's that. But what if I told you that for those of us over 60, that simple, everyday habit might be carrying a hidden risk we never even thought about? Not the usual warnings you hear about soggy pizza or rubbery chicken, but something much more serious. New research is pointing to a concerning link between reheating certain common foods and a sharp increase in the risk of stroke and other health issues as we get older. Now, please don't let that alarm you. This isn't about causing worry. It's about sharing knowledge that empowers us to make tiny tweaks to our routines that can have a massive impact on our long-term health and vitality. Because staying healthy and independent is what we all want, right? It's about enjoying our days, our grandchildren, our hobbies, and our peace of mind to the absolute fullest. So, in this video, we're going to walk through this together. We'll talk about 7 everyday foods that, when reheated, can become problematic for us after 60. And most importantly, I'll share the simple, safe alternatives so you don't have to give up your favorite leftovers. You can just enjoy them in a safer way. Let's start with one that might surprise you. It's not some exotic ingredient. It's something many of us have in our refrigerators right now. I'm talking about leafy greens. Now, we all know spinach, kale, and lettuce are powerhouses of nutrition. They're packed with vitamins and nitrates, which are actually good for us when eaten fresh. But here's where the change happens. When we cook these greens and then leave them sitting for a while, whether at room temperature or even in the fridge, those naturally occurring nitrates can slowly convert into nitrites. And when you reheat them, that process can accelerate, and those nitrites can further convert into compounds called nitrosamines. Now, that's a bit of a scientific mouthful, I know, but the simple version is this. Some nitrosamines have been linked to potential health concerns, including an effect on blood vessels that can influence stroke risk, especially for our age group, where we might already be managing things like blood pressure. It's not a guaranteed problem every single time, but it's a risk that's so easy to avoid. So, what's the solution? It's simple. If you have leftover cooked spinach, kale, or any leafy green, enjoy them cold. Toss them into a salad the next day, add them to a cold sandwich, or just eat them straight from the fridge. Their flavor is often lovely cold, and you get all the benefit without the worry. It's a tiny change that makes a big difference. Now, let's move on to another big one, and this is a staple for so many of us. Potatoes, mashed potatoes, baked potatoes, roasted potatoes, roasted potatoes. They are the comfort food of champions. And the idea of throwing away leftover mashed potatoes is almost unthinkable, isn't it? But here's the thing about potatoes. When they're recooked and then left to cool slowly at room temperature, which is what most of us do after a big dinner, it creates the perfect environment for a bacteria called Clostridium botulinum to grow. This is the same bacteria that causes botulism, which is very rare but extremely serious. Now, reheating usually kills the bacteria, but it doesn't always destroy the toxins that the bacteria produces as it grows. Those toxins are what make us sick, and for us, with immune systems that might not be as robust as they once were, the effects can be more severe. But there's a second issue specific to reheating. When potatoes are reheated, especially at high temperatures in a microwave, their starches can break down further, causing a sharper spike in blood sugar than when they were first cooked. For those of us watching our blood sugar or managing diabetes, this is an important thing to know. So, what's the safe way? The key is all in the cooling. As soon as you're done with your meal, don't let the potatoes sit on the stove. Portion them out and get them into the refrigerator right away. This rapid cooling prevents that bacterial growth. And when you do reheat them, make sure they are piping hot all the way through, steaming to ensure any potential bacteria is eliminated. Or, my favorite alternative, make a lovely cold potato salad for lunch the next day. No reheating needed, and just as delicious. And that leads us perfectly into our third food for today, which is rice. It's the same basic principle as potatoes, but it's one that many people have never heard of. Uncooked rice can contain spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. These spores can survive the initial cooking process. Then, if the cooked rice is left standing at room temperature, those spores can germinate into bacteria, which multiply rapidly and produce toxins. Reheating the rice might kill the bacteria, but it won't destroy the heat-resistant toxins that have already been produced. Eating that can lead to what's often called fried rice syndrome, which is a nasty bout of food poisoning involving vomiting and diarrhea. For us, in our 60s, 70s, and beyond, a case of food poisoning isn't just a rough 24 hours. It can lead to dangerous dehydration, dizziness, falls, and a real setback in our overall health. It's simply not worth the risk. The safe method is identical to potatoes. Cool it down quickly. As soon as your rice is cooked, serve what you'll eat, and immediately transfer the rest into a shallow container and place it in the refrigerator. This helps it cool fast and safely. Then, when you reheat it, add a tablespoon or two of water to create steam. Cover it, and make sure it is heated thoroughly and evenly, until it is truly hot all the way through. This makes it much safer to enjoy. So, we've covered leafy greens, potatoes, and rice tree, everyday foods, where a simple change in how we handle our leftovers can make a world of difference for our well-being. It's not about fear. It's about being smart and taking gentle care of ourselves. And there are a few more important ones we need to talk about, including some proteins that behave very differently when they're reheated, which can directly impact our heart health. But we'll get into all of that right after this. It's interesting, isn't it, how the routines we've followed for decades, the simple acts like putting a plate of food in the microwave, can have layers to them we never considered. But like we were just saying, it's not about being afraid of our food. Far from it. It's about understanding how our bodies change after 60, and how we can adapt our habits to protect our health and keep feeling our best. It's about working with our bodies, not against them. And that brings us to our next food, which is a big one for many families, especially when you've gone to the effort of roasting a beautiful chicken or cooking a lovely piece of fish. I'm talking about reheating poultry and seafood. Now, this one has two sides to it. The first is the bacterial side. Much like with rice and potatoes, chicken and other poultry can harbor salmonella, and seafood can carry its own set of bacteria. If it's left out too long after cooking, those bacteria multiply. A quick zap in the microwave might warm the surface, but it might not heat the center thoroughly enough to kill everything off, leading to a real risk of food poisoning. But for us, there's another, more specific concern with reheating these proteins, and it has to do with the structure of the protein itself. When you cook chicken or fish for the first time, you're essentially denaturing the proteins and folding them and making them digestible. When they cool and then are reheated, especially in a microwave, which can be uneven, those proteins can break down further in a way that can be much harder for our digestive systems to process. As we get older, our production of stomach acid naturally decreases, and our digestion can just be a bit more sensitive. Reheated, overly denatured proteins can sit heavily in our stomachs, causing discomfort, bloating, and indigestion that we just don't need. So, what's the best way to handle that leftover roast chicken or that beautiful piece of salmon? The safest method is to, first, always cool it down quickly. Slice the chicken off the bone or break the fish into flakes. Spread it in a shallow container and get it in the fridge. This defeats the bacteria. Then, when you're ready for it the next day, consider enjoying it cold. A cold chicken sandwich with a bit of mayonnaise or a lovely flaked salmon salad is a delicious and absolutely safe option. If you simply must have it warm, the key is low and slow. Reheat it gently in a saucepan with a little broth or sauce, or in the oven at a low temperature, covered with foil to keep it moist. This gentle reheating is kinder to the proteins in your stomach. It takes a few more minutes, but your body will thank you for it. Now, this next one might be the most surprising on the list, and it's one I know I've been guilty of reheating my whole life without a second thought. We're talking about mushrooms. These wonderful, earthy vegetables are a fantastic source of nutrients, but they are also incredibly perishable. Their protein content is delicate, and their high moisture content makes them a perfect breeding ground for bacteria if they are not handled correctly. Nutritionists often say that mushrooms should be eaten immediately after they are cooked for the best digestibility, and to avoid any potential for microbes to develop. When you cook mushrooms and then let them sit, that risk increases. Reheating them can accelerate the breakdown of those already delicate proteins, making them potentially tough on our digestive systems. It's not a common occurrence, but for those of us with more sensitive stomachs, it can lead to feeling uncomfortably full or bloated. So, the golden rule with mushrooms is to only cook what you plan to eat in one sitting. If you do find yourself with leftovers, it's truly best to skip the reheating process altogether. Enjoy them cold the next day, perhaps chopped up in an omelet that you cook fresh, or tossed into a cold pasta salad. It's a small shift in planning that can save you a world of discomfort. And that leads us to a category that is absolutely crucial for our heart and stroke risk, and that's processed meats. This includes things like bacon, hot dogs, sausages, ham, and deli meats like salami. Now, we've probably all heard that these aren't the healthiest choices to begin with, and that's true. They are often very high in sodium and preservatives, which we know can impact blood pressure. But the act of reheating them adds another layer of risk. Many processed meats contain preservatives called nitrates and nitrites, which are used to keep their color and prevent spoilage. When these meats are exposed to high heat again, during reheating especially, under the intense and direct heat of a grill or broiler, or even in a frying pan, those compounds can undergo a chemical change and form nitrosamines, just like we saw with the leafy greens. And numerous studies have linked a high intake of nitrosamines to an increased risk of certain cancers and, importantly for our topic today, to vascular damage and an increased risk of stroke. For those of us over 60, whose blood vessels may already be under pressure from other age-related changes, this added risk is something we can very easily avoid. The advice here is straightforward. If you are going to enjoy a processed meat, try your best to have it fresh cooked and avoid reheating it a second time. If you have leftover bacon, crumble it cold over a salad. If you have leftover sausages, slice them and eat them cold in a sandwich instead of frying them up again. It's about breaking the habit of automatically reaching for the frying pan and thinking of cooler, safer ways to enjoy the food. It's a simple choice that directly supports the health of your heart and your blood vessels. It's a lot to take in, I know. It feels like we're relearning the rules of the kitchen we've been known for a lifetime. But each of these small changes is a positive step, a little gift you're giving to your body. And there are just a couple more very important foods we need to discuss, including one that seems so innocent, but can be particularly tricky when it comes to how we warm it up. But we'll get to that in just a moment. Soft, friendly instrumental music fades back in. It really does feel like we're putting together a new puzzle, doesn't it? Seeing how these everyday habits connect to our well-being, and it's empowering because each piece we place is a step toward taking control of our health in a simple, practical way. We've already covered so much ground, from leafy greens to those beloved processed meats, and I hope you're restarting to see that this isn't about a long list of restrictions. It's about swapping out old routines for new, smarter ones that let us enjoy our food with complete peace of mind. And that brings us to our final two foods, starting with one that is a true breakfast staple for so many of us, and that's eggs. Now, I can already hear you thinking, what could possibly be wrong with a reheated scrambled egg? And most of the time, probably nothing. But let's talk about the specific times when it might be a concern. We've all heard about the risk of salmonella with raw eggs, and thorough cooking kills that bacteria. The issue with reheating arises from how we handle the eggs after they're cooked. If a dish like scrambled eggs, a frittata, or a quiche is left out at room temperature for too long, say, after a leisurely Sunday brunch, any bacteria that might have been present or that landed on it from the air can begin to multiply rapidly. Reheating might not always penetrate evenly to kill all of that new bacteria, especially in a dense quiche. But there's another, more specific issue for our digestion. Reheating eggs, particularly in a microwave, can change the protein structure yet again, making those proteins even tougher for our bodies to break down. This can sometimes release toxic compounds in the process and almost certainly will lead to feelings of bloating and discomfort. For a system that might already be a little more sensitive, it's an unnecessary burden. So, the best practice with egg dishes is the same as with others. Cool them quickly and get them in the fridge. And then, rather than reheating them, consider enjoying that slice of quiche or a portion of frittata cold. It's actually quite delicious at room temperature. If you simply must warm it up, do so very gently and slowly in a low-temperature oven, and be absolutely sure it's heated all the way through. But honestly, giving your stomach a break and going for cold is a wonderfully easy solution. Now, for our last item, and this is the one I mentioned that seems so innocent. It's not a main course or a side dish. It's something we might warm up for a quick snack or for our grandchildren. I'm talking about cooking oils. This is a subtle one, but it's incredibly important, especially for our cardiovascular health. You see, certain oils have what is called a low smoke point. This is the temperature at which the oil starts to break down and smoke. Oils like extra virgin olive oil, flaxseed oil, and walnut oil are fantastic for us when used cold in dressings or drizzled over finished food. But they are not stable when exposed to high, direct heat. When you reheat food that has been cooked in one of these delicate oils, you are essentially subjecting that oil to high heat for a second time. This double heating causes the oil to oxidize, creating harmful free radicals and inflammatory compounds. For us, this inflammation is a key player in the health of our blood vessels. Inflamed, stressed blood vessels are more prone to the damage that can lead to clots and ultimately increase the risk of a stroke. It's a chain reaction that starts in the pan. The solution here is to be mindful of which oil you use for initial cooking. If you know you plan to have leftovers. For foods you intend to reheat, use an oil with a high smoke point for the initial cooking. Oils like avocado oil, peanut oil, or even light knot extra virgin olive oil are much more stable and can withstand the heat of reheating without breaking down into those harmful compounds. It has a simple switch at the start of your cooking that makes the reheating process perfectly safe. And there we have it. 7 foods where a small change in our habits can make a profound difference. It seems like a lot, but if you step back, the theme is beautifully simple. Cool food quickly, reheat gently and thoroughly when needed, and often. Embrace the deliciousness of eating things cold. It's not about being afraid of your kitchen. It's about being its master in a new way. Remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. Maybe this week, you just focus on how you cool your potatoes and rice. Next week, you might try that cold chicken sandwich. Small changes, done consistently, are what build a lifetime of good health. You have the power to make these simple choices that support your energy, your vitality, and your independence. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Did any of these surprise you? What's your favorite way to enjoy leftovers cold? Sharing our tips and experiences helps us all learn and grow together. If this information felt helpful and empowering, please give this video a thumbs up to let me know. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell icon. We're here to share straightforward, helpful advice so you can live your healthiest, happiest life. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Take good care of yourselves, and remember, here's to your health and to enjoying every single bite along the way.